Imagine you've just moved into a dream apartment, a steal of a deal in the heart of a bustling city. The floors gleam, the windows frame a perfect view, and the rent is so low it feels like you've won the lottery. But as night falls, you hear something soft, eerie whispers drifting through the walls, like secrets the building doesn't want to share. You check the doors, the windows, but find nothing. The whispers stop, only to start again when you're alone, sending chills down your spine. Is it your imagination, or is the apartment hiding something sinister? That's the unsettling mystery that lands in the lap of Hercule Poirot, the world's greatest detective. In our spine-tingling tale, Poirot's final clue in the adventure of the cheap flat. Welcome to a thrilling YouTube journey where we dive into an Agatha Christie-inspired case, reimagined as a gripping video script. Over 10 chapters, we'll follow Poirot as he unravels a web of deception, hidden motives, and a single, elusive clue that could mean the difference between life and death. So, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and let's step into 1930s London with Poirot's razor-sharp mind and iconic mustache. If you're ready for a mystery that'll keep you on edge, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss a single twist. It's a dreary, fog-choked morning in 1930s London, and Hercule Poirot is in his immaculate apartment at Montagu Mansions, a sanctuary of order amidst the city's chaos. The air smells faintly of lavender and his beloved Tisana herbal tea he sips from a delicate porcelain cup with the reverence of a sommelier. Every detail in the room is perfect. Books aligned with military precision, cushions fluffed too, geometric exactness, and a silver tray polished to a mirror shine. Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal friend, lounges in an armchair, his lanky frame sprawled as he skims the morning paper, muttering about the endless rain. Honestly, Poirot, Hastings grumbles, tossing the paper onto a side table. This weather's enough to drive a man to drink. Why can't we escape to the Riviera for a bit of sun? Poirot's green eyes twinkle with amusement, his mustache twitching slightly. Mon ami, he replies, his Belgian accent rich and deliberate. The fog of London, it cloaks secrets, and secrets are the fuel of Hercule Poirot. The Riviera can wait. As if the universe agrees, the doorbell rings, sharp and urgent, slicing through the morning's quiet like a warning bell. The postman, a young man with a cap pulled low and a nervous twitch, hands Poirot a letter and hurries away, as if the envelope itself carries a curse. The paper is plain but thick, the kind used by those with means, and the handwriting is hurried, almost frantic, with ink smudges suggesting it was written in haste or fear. Poirot slices it open with a silver letter opener, his movements precise, almost ceremonial, and reads aloud to Hastings, who's now sitting up, his curiosity piqued. The letter is from Mrs. Stella Robinson, a young American newlywed who moved to London with her husband, James. They've rented a flat at Montagu Mansions, a grand but faded building in a posh part of town, for a rent so low it defies belief. It's a dream come true, Stella writes. 2 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, high ceilings, and a view of the park hall for half what others pay. But something's wrong, Monsieur Poirot. The landlord, Mr. Carstairs, is evasive, always dodging questions about the flat's past. At night, we hear footsteps in the hall, whispers through the walls, even when no one's there. Last week, I found a hidden panel in the fireplace, and I swear I saw someone watching us from the stairwell. I'm terrified we're caught in something dangerous. Please, help us. Poirot leans back, his fingers steepled under his chin, his little grey cells, his term for his brilliant mind, ready worry like a finely tuned engine. Hastings, ever the practical one, scoffs. Sounds like a couple of Americans spooked by an old building, Poirot. Creaky floors, drafty walls, nothing a good plumber can't fix. But Poirot's expression is grave, his eyes narrowing as he rereads the letter. Nan, mon ami, he says, tapping the paper. A flat so cheap in such a place. It is unnatural. The whispers, the hidden panel, the watching eyes, these are not the work of pipes. There is a mystery here, and I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover it. He notes the details. The landlord's secrecy, the impossibly low rent, the nocturnal sounds, and the hidden panel. Why, he wonders, would a landlord offer such a deal? Is the flat a lure, a cover for something sinister, or a relic of a forgotten crime? His curiosity is aflame, and this letter is the spark. Let's pause and unpack this. Poirot isn't your run-of-the-mill detective, chasing thugs through alleys or relying on gadgets. His battlefield is the mind psychology observation, and the tiniest details that others overlook. This letter is a puzzle piece, and Poirot lives for puzzles. The smudged ink suggests fear. The mention of a hidden panel hints at secrets built into the flat itself, and the low rent screams deception. Hastings, bless him, sees only the surface, but Poirot's already diving deep. It's like when you find a deal online that's too good your gut says there's a catch, doesn't it? Ever bought something cheap and felt uneasy, like you missed a warning sign? That's the instinct Poirot's following, and he's rarely wrong, so what's next? Poirot announces they're heading to Montagu Mansions. Pack a bag, mon ami, he tells Hastings, who groans at the thought of leaving his cozy armchair. And leave the golf clubs behind, we need room for the truth. They hail a cab through London's misty streets, the city a blur of clattering, trams honking cars, and vendors hawking their wares. Montagu Mansions looms ahead, a red brick giant with tall, arched windows and a faded grandeur, like a once wealthy dowager fallen on hard times. The building's lobby is dimly lit, with cracked marble floors and a creaky lift that groans like it's protesting their arrival. Flat 6B, the Robinsons' home, is on the third floor, and as Poirot and Hastings climb the narrow staircase, Poirot's senses are on high alert. He notices scuff marks on the banister, a lingering whiff of cigarette smoke that doesn't match, the building's stale air, and a door across the hall number 6 are slightly ajar, as if someone's peeking out. Most curious, he murmurs, his hand brushing the banister's worn wood dot at the flat. Stella Robinson opens the door, her face pale, her blue eyes wide with worry. She's young, barely 25, with a soft American accent and a nervous habit of twisting her wedding ring. Her husband, James, stands behind her, a tall man with a furrowed brow and hands shoved deep in his pockets, as if bracing for bad news. Monsieur Poirot, thank you for coming, Stella says, her voice trembling. I didn't know who else to turn to. The flat is stunning spacious with polished oak floors, high ceilings, and large windows overlooking the autumnal park. But there's an unease here, a heaviness that clings to the air. Stella leads them to the living room, where a modern fireplace dominates one wall. She points to a panel beside it, barely visible, its edges misaligned. I found this by accident. She says, it opens, but it's empty. And the noise is footsteps, whispers, they come from behind the walls, always at night. James nods, his voice gruff. The landlord Carstairs says it's just the building settling, but he won't meet our eyes. And the rent it's too cheap for a place like this. Poirot examines the panel, his gloved fingers tracing its edges. It's cleverly hidden, flush with the wall, but a faint scratch suggests it's been opened recently. He taps it, hearing a hollow echo, and his grey cells buzz with possibilities. Secret compartment, perhaps, or a passage to another flat. He notices a faint burn mark on the floor nearby, like a cigarette stubbed out in haste. "Madame, monsieur," he says, turning to the Robinsons. "This flat, it holds secrets. The little grey cells, they will uncover them." Hastings, peering over his shoulder, sighs, "Probably just mice, Poirot." "You're making a fuss over nothing," but Poirot's smile is knowing. "Mice, mon ami, do not whisper, nor do they watch from stairwells." He resolves to meet Mr. Carstairs and inspect the flat further, sensing the mystery runs deeper than a creaky old building. This is Poirot at his finest, taking a simple complaint, a chooky flat with strange noises, and smelling a conspiracy. The low rent, the hidden panel, the landlord's evasiveness, they're all threads in a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot's ready to pull them apart. For us, it's a reminder to trust that gut feeling when something's off, whether it's a deal or a situation. Ever moved into a place that gave you the creeps, or found a bargain that felt suspicious? Share your stories in the comments. Seem dying to hear them. In the next chapter, we'll meet the shady landlord and dig into the flat's hidden corners. Will Poirot uncover a harmless quirk or a dangerous plot? Stick around, and if you're hooked on this mystery, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next twist. The fog lingers over London as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings step out of the Robinsons' flat at Montagu Mansions. The grand but weathered building looming like a silent witness to secrets untold. The morning air is damp, carrying the faint scent of coal smoke and wet leaves from the nearby park. Poirot adjusts his impeccable overcoat, his polished shoes clicking on the cracked marble floor of the lobby, his mind already dissecting the clues from Stella Robinson's letter. The impossibly cheap rent, the eerie whispers in the walls, the hidden panel by the fireplace, and the shadowy figure watching from the stairwell. Captain Hastings, trailing behind with his hands stuffed in his pockets, lets out a long sigh. "I say, Poirot, this is all a bit much for a creaky flat, don't you think? Probably just old pipes and a nervous American. Can't we wrap this up and find a decent pub?" Poirot's moustache twitches, his green eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and reproach. "Mon ami," he says, his Belgian accent thick with purpose. "The pipes, they do not whisper secrets, nor do they spy from doorways. There is a mystery here, and I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover it. Bob, the fox terrier from our previous tale, isn't here, but Poirot's instincts are as sharp as ever, and he's ready to chase the truth. Their first task is to meet Mr. Carstairs, the landlord whose evasiveness has raised Poirot's suspicions. Stella had mentioned his office was in the building's basement, so they descend a narrow, dimly lit staircase, the air growing mustier with each step. The basement is a maze of dusty corridors, lined with locked storage rooms and flickering light bulbs that cast eerie shadows. Poirot notices a faint scuff mark on the floor, like a crate dragged in haste, and a whiff of cigarette smoke that matches the smell in the upstairs hall. "Curious," he murmurs, filing it away. Hastings, rubbing his arms against the chill, mutters, "This place is a dungeon. No wonder the rent's cheap." At the end of the corridor, they find a door marked Carstairs Property Management, its paint peeling, a single bulb buzzing overhead. Poirot knocks sharply, and after a long pause, the door creaks open. Mr. Carstairs is a wiry man in his 50s, with slicked back hair, a pinched face, and eyes that dart like a cornered animal's. His suit is cheap, the kind that tries too hard to look expensive, and his smile is more grimace than greeting. "Monsieur Poirot, is it?" he says, his voice oily. "Didn't expect a detective. What's this about?" Poirot offers a polite bow, his charm disarming, but his gaze piercing. "Monsieur Carstairs, I am here at the request of your tenants. The Robinsons, they speak of irregularities in their flat, a rent most modest, noises in the night, a hidden panel. You, perhaps, can explain." Carstairs laughs, too loudly, his hands fidgeting with a pen. "Old buildings make noises, monsieur. As for the rent, I'm just a generous man. The flat was empty to long-needed tenants, that's all." But his eyes avoid Poirot's, and his fingers tremble slightly, betraying nerves. Poirot presses gently, his voice smooth but probing. "And the panel by the fireplace, it suggests secrets, Nan. Perhaps a history you have not shared." Carstairs' smile falters, and he shrugs. "Probably a remnant from the last tenants. People leave all sorts of nonsense behind." Hastings, leaning against the doorframe, chimes in. "Sounds like you're hiding something, old chap." Carstairs bristles, his voice sharp. "I've nothing to hide. If the Robinsons don't like the flat, they can leave." Poirot notes the defensiveness, the sweat beating on Carstairs' brow, and decides not to push further yet. He thanks the landlord, his politeness a mask for suspicion, and leads Hastings back upstairs. "That man," he says softly, "knows more than he tells. The little grey cells, they are not deceived." Back in flat 6B, Poirot examines the hidden panel more closely. The Robinsons are out, giving him free rein to explore. The panel is cleverly disguised, flush with the fireplace's stonework, but a faint scratch and a misaligned edge betray its existence. Poirot taps it, hearing a hollow echo, and with a gentle push, it slides open, revealing a narrow compartment empty, but with dust disturbed, as if recently used. "Most interesting," he says, running a gloved finger along the edge. He finds a tiny splinter of wood, painted black, and a trace of ash, like from a cigarette. Hastings, peering over his shoulder, sighs. "An empty cupboard, Poirot. Hardly a crime." But Poirot's eyes gleam. "Empty now, mon ami, but what was it hiding, and why?" He notices a faint draft from the compartment, suggesting it connects to something, another room, a passage, or perhaps the flat across the hall. Poirot steps into the hallway, his attention drawn to flat 6A, the door that was ajar earlier. It's closed now, but he knocks lightly. No answer. He tries the handle locked. The cigarette smell is stronger here, and he spots a burn mark on the floor, matching the one in the Robinsons' flat. "This door," he murmurs, "it is part of the puzzle." Hastings, growing restless, says, "Maybe the neighbor's just a heavy smoker." "You're seeing mysteries in everything, Poirot." But Poirot's mind is racing. The cheap rent, the whispers, the panel, the watching eyes, they point to a scheme, perhaps one involving the neighboring flat. He resolves to track down the tenant of 6A and investigate the building's history, suspecting the low rent is a lure for something sinister. Let's unpack this. Poirot's genius lies in his ability to see connections where others see coincidence. Carstairs' nervousness, the hidden panel, the matching cigarette burns, they're threads in a web of deception. The landlord's evasiveness suggests he's hiding a secret. And the panel hints at a physical link to the mystery perhaps, a smuggling operation, a hideout, or worse. For us, it's a lesson in trusting your instincts when something feels off, like a deal too good to be true. Ever met someone who dodged your questions a bit too quickly? That's Carstairs right now, and Poirot's not buying his act. The flat secrets are starting to surface, and Poirot's ready to dig deeper. As they leave Montagu Mansions, Poirot pauses in the lobby, noticing a bulletin board with old noticized tenants' complaints, maintenance schedules, and a faded article about a robbery in the building years ago. Most curious, he says, pocketing a copy. Hastings, shivering in the fog, groans. You're collecting rubbish now, Poirot. Let's get out of this damp. But Poirot's smile is serene. Rubbish, mon ami, is often treasure in disguise. He's already planning his next move, a visit to the local records office to check the building's past, and a discreet inquiry about flat 6A's tenant. The whispers in the walls are calling, and Poirot's determined to answer. This chapter sets the stage for a deeper dive into the mystery. Poirot's sniffing out a conspiracy, and every clue the panel, the cigarette burns, Carstairs' nerves, him closer to the truth. For us, it's a reminder to look beyond the surface, to question what seems too perfect. Ever had a landlord or seller act shady, making you wonder what they're hiding? Drop your stories in the comments. I'm curious to hear them. In the next chapter, we'll explore the building's history and meet the mysterious tenant of flat 6A. Will Poirot find the key to the whispers, or is the danger closer than he thinks? Stay tuned, and if you're loving this mystery, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to catch the next twist. The London fog thickens as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings step out of Montagu Mansions, the grand old building's red brick facade looming behind them like a silent keeper of secrets. The air is heavy with damp, the kind that seeps into your bones, and the distant hum of the city trams rattling. Vendors shouting feels muffled, as if the fog itself is swallowing sound. Poirot, his overcoat buttoned tightly and his hat tilted just so, walks with purpose, his polished shoes clicking on the wet pavement. His mind is a whirl of clues. The suspiciously cheap rent for flat 6B, the hidden panel by the fireplace, the whispers in the walls, the cigarette burns, and Mr. Carstairs' nervous deflection. Captain Hastings, trudging alongside, pulls his scarf tighter and grumbles. This weather's beastly, Poirot, and all this fuss over a creaky flat. I bet it's just rats in the walls, not some grand conspiracy. Poirot's mustache twitches, his green eyes sharp with focus. Mon ami, he says, his Belgian accent cutting through the fog. Rats do not whisper, nor do they open secret panels. There is a puzzle here, and I, Hercule Poirot, will solve it. His little grey cells are buzzing, and he's determined to uncover the truth behind the Robinsons' eerie flat. Today, Poirot's mission is to dig into the history of Montagu Mansions and track down the tenant of flat 6A, the door that was ajar, hinting at a watcher in the shadows. He decides to start at the local records office, a dusty building tucked away on a side street near the town hall. The office smells of old paper and ink, its shelves groaning under the weight of leather-bound ledgers. A clerk, an elderly man with thick glasses and a perpetual frown, looks up as Poirot enters, clearly annoyed at the interruption. "Good morning, Monsieur," Poirot says, his charm disarming. "I seek information on Montagu Mansions, its history, its tenants. A small matter, but most urgent." The clerk grumbles but shuffles to a ledger, flipping through yellowed pages. Montagu Mansions, built in the 1890s, fancy place back then. Had a rough patch robbery in 29, some jewelry heist. Never caught the culprits. Been a bit of a revolving door for tenants since. Poirot's ears perk up at the mention of the robbery. And the flats, 6A and 6B. Their records. The clerk squints, pulling another ledger. 6B's been empty, on and off. Cheap rent to lure tenants. 6A's got a fellow named John Barker. Keeps to himself, pays on time. Poirot jots down the name, his mind racing. A robbery years ago, a flat with a low rent, a secretive. Tenant in 6 ether pieces are starting to form a picture, but it's still blurry. He thanks the clerk, slipping him a coin for his trouble, and leads Hastings back into the fog. A robbery, mon ami, Poirot says, his voice low. It is no coincidence. The flat, it may hide remnants of that crime. Hastings rolls his eyes. You're chasing ghosts now, Poirot. A robbery from years ago, probably just kids nicking baubles. But Poirot's smile is serene. Ghosts leave traces, Hastings, and I will find them. Their next stop is back at Montagu Mansions, to confront John Barker, the tenant of 6A, and explore the building further. Back at the building, the lobby feels even gloomier, the cracked marble floor reflecting the dim light of a flickering chandelier. Poirot heads straight for flat 6A, his knock firm but polite. No answer. He tries again, louder, and the door creaks open, revealing a man in his 40s, lean and wiry, with a face shadowed by a day's stubble. John Barker's eyes are guarded, his voice gruff. "What do you want?" he asks, his hand lingering on the doorframe. Poirot offers a polite bow. "Monsieur Barker, I am Hercule Poirot, investigating certain irregularities in this building. Your flat, it is close to 6B, where strange noises are heard. Have you noticed anything unusual?" Barker's jaw tightens, and he shrugs. "Old buildings creak. I keep to myself. Don't hear much." But Poirot notices a faint tremor in his hand, and the smell of cigarette smoke strong, matching the burns in the hall in 6B. "Perhaps," Poirot says, "you have seen someone watching the Robinsons. A figure in the stairwell." Barker's eyes flicker, but he shakes his head. "No idea what you're talking about." He shuts the door, leaving Poirot staring at the peeling paint. "Let's break this down." Poirot's like a bloodhound, sniffing out the past to understand the present. The robbery in 29 is a red flag. Could the flat's low rent be a cover to keep it occupied, hiding something left behind? Barker's evasiveness, like Carstairs's, screams suspicion. The cigarette smoke ties him to the hall and the Robinson flat, and his guarded demeanor suggests he's hiding something. Poirot's not just collecting clues. He's reading people, their hesitations, their glances. It's like when you meet someone who avoids your questions, and you just know they're holding back. Ever had a neighbor who seemed a bit too secretive? That's Barker, and Poirot's not letting him off the hook. Poirot decides to inspect the Robinsons' flat again, this time focusing on the walls where the whispers were heard. Stella and James are home, and Stella's nerves are frayed, her hands twisting as she offers tea. "It happened again last night," she says, her voice low. Whispers, like voices arguing, coming from the wall by the bedroom. Poirot examines the wall, tapping gently. It's solid, but near the baseboard he finds a faint seam, barely visible, suggesting another hidden panel. He presses, but it doesn't budge. Most curious, he murmurs, noting a tiny speck of ash nearby, another cigarette burn. He asks James about the building's layout. Any shared walls with 6A? James nods. The bedroom wall backs onto Barker's flat. Could the noises come from there? Poirot's grey cells buzz. This could be the link. He steps into the hall, examining the space between 6A and 6B. The walls are thick, but he notices a ventilation grate old and rusted at floor level. Kneeling, he peers inside, catching a faint gleam of metal deep within. A passage, perhaps, he says, his voice barely a whisper. Hastings, hovering nearby, scoffs. You're seeing secret tunnels now, Poirot. It's probably just a rat's nest. But Poirot's mind is racing. The grate, the cigarette burns, the robbery. Could 6A and 6B be connected, part of a scheme? Tied to the past, he resolves to get into Barker's flat, legally or otherwise, and to dig deeper into the robbery's details as they leave. Poirot pauses at the lobby's bulletin board, where the faded article about the 1929 robbery catches his eye again. It mentions missing jewels, never recovered, and a tenant who vanished after the crime. The flat, Poirot says, it was 6B, I suspect. A hiding place, perhaps, for stolen goods. Hastings groans. You're building a castle out of sand, Poirot. Let's at least get a pint before you start digging for buried treasure. But Poirot's smile is unshaken. The treasure, mon ami, is the truth, and I am close to finding it. This chapter is all about digging into the past to uncover the present. Poirot's connecting dots: robbery, cheap rent, secretive tenants, and every clue brings him closer to the heart of the mystery. For us, it's a reminder to look beyond the obvious, to question what's hidden in plain sight. Ever stumbled on an old story that changed how you saw a place? Share it in the comments side. Love to hear your tales. In the next chapter, we'll try to get inside flat 6A and uncover more about the robbery. Will he find the source of the whispers, or is the danger closer than he thinks? Don't miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay in the loop. The fog in London clings to the streets like a shroud, wrapping Montagu Mansions in a veil of mystery as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings return to the grand faded building. The air is thick with the scent of wet stone and coal dust, and the distant clatter of trams feels like a heartbeat pulsing through the city. Poirot, his overcoat pristine despite the damp, moves with the precision of a cat, his eyes scanning every detail: the cracked marble in the lobby, the flickering chandelier, the faint cigarette smoke lingering in the air. His mind is a whirlwind of clues: the impossibly cheap rent for flat 6B, the hidden panel by the Robinsons' fireplace, the whispers in the walls, the cigarette burns, the shady landlord Carstairs, and now the tantalizing hint of a 1929 robbery tied to the building. Captain Hastings, trudging behind, his scarf askew, lets out a frustrated huff. Poirot, this is getting absurd, he says, dodging a puddle. A robbery from years ago, a creaky grate, some whispers. You're chasing shadows. Can't we just tell the Robinsons to move and call it a day? Poirot's mustache twitches, his green eyes sharp with purpose. Mon ami, he replies, his Belgian accent cutting through the gloom. Shadows hide secrets, and secrets are the bread and butter of Hercule Poirot. The truth, it is close, and I will find it. Today, Poirot's focus is on flat 6A and its elusive tenant. John Barker, whose guarded demeanor and cigarette habit make him a prime suspect in the mystery. He also wants to explore the ventilation grate he spotted in the hall, suspecting it's the key to the whispers Stella Robinson heard. But first, he needs access to 6A, and Barker's not exactly rolling out the welcome mat. Poirot decides to try diplomacy, knocking on 6A's door with a polite but firm rap. No answer. He knocks again, louder, and the door opens a crack, revealing Barker's lean face, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Back again, are you?" Barker growls, his hand gripping the door. "I told you, I don't know nothing about no noises." Poirot smiles, his charm disarming but his gaze piercing. "Monsieur Barker, a moment of your time, s'il vous plaît. The noises in 6B, they come from the wall you share. Perhaps you have heard them too." Barker's jaw tightens, and he shakes his head. "I mind my own business. You should too." He slams the door, but Poirot catches a glimpse of a cluttered room papers strewn on a table, a cigarette smouldering in an ashtray, and a faint metallic glint in the corner. Poirot's grey cells buzz. This man is hiding something. The cigarette smoke matching the burns in the hall and 6B is no coincidence. He turns to the ventilation grate in the hallway, a rusted metal square at floor level between 6A and 6B. Kneeling, he peers inside, his gloved hand brushing away dust. The grate is loose, its screws worn, and deep within, he sees that same metallic glint, a piece of wire, perhaps, or a tool. "Most interesting," he murmurs, using a pocket knife to pry the grate open. It comes free with a soft creak, revealing a narrow duct, barely wide enough for a child to crawl through. The air inside is stale, tinged with smoke, and Poirot spots a tiny scrap of paper caught in the duct's edge. He retrieves it, a torn receipt for a jeweler's shop, dated 2 weeks ago, with the word appraisal scrawled on it. Hastings, hovering behind, scoffs. "A bit of rubbish, Poirot. You're building a case on litter now." But Poirot's eyes gleam. Rubbish, mon ami, is often a clue in disguise. Let's pause and unpack this. Poirot's like a master chess player, moving pieces with precision. The grate, the receipt, Barker's defensiveness, they're all part of the puzzle. The duct could explain the whispers, carrying sounds from 6A to 6B, but why? Is Barker involved in something illicit, perhaps tied to the 1929 robbery? The receipt suggests recent activity, maybe an attempt to sell stolen goods. Poirot's not just chasing clues. He's reading the story they tell. It's like when you hear a rumor and start digging, only to find a bigger truth. Ever found a small detail like a note or a receipt that changed everything? That's what Poirot's after. Back in flat 6B, Poirot meets with Stella and James Robinson, who are growing more anxious by the day. Stella's hands tremble as she pours tea, her voice low. "The whispers were louder last night," she says, glancing at the bedroom wall. "It sounded like 2 men arguing, something about moving it soon." "I'm scared, Monsieur Poirot." James, pacing, adds, "I checked the panel, again nothing new, but I swear I saw someone in the hall when I took out the trash." "Just a shadow, but it moved fast." Poirot nods, his mind connecting the dots. He examines the bedroom wall, tapping along its length. Near the baseboard, he finds another faint seam, like the one by the fireplace. Pressing gently, he hears a soft click, but the panel doesn't open, it's locked from the other side. "A passage," he says, his voice barely a whisper. "Between 6A and 6B, perhaps." Hastings groans. "A secret tunnel. You've been reading too many novels, Poirot." Poirot's next move is to dig deeper into the 1929 robbery. he visits. The local newspaper office, a bustling place filled with the clack of typewriters and the smell of ink. A young reporter, eager for a story, pulls the file on the Montagu Mansions heist. Big news back then, she says, handing over a clipping. Jewels worth thousands vanished from flat 6B. Tenant, a shady type named Grayson, skipped town. Cops thought he hid the loot in the flat, but they never found it. Poirot's eyes light up. The flat's history is no coincidence. And the landlord at the time, he asks. The reporter shrugs. Some chap named Carstairs. Still around, I hear. Poirot's grey cells spark Carstairs. The current landlord was involved then too. Is he keeping 6B's rent low to hide the stolen jewels or to lure tenants as a cover? Returning to Montagu Mansions, Poirot notices a new detail in the lobby, a maintenance logbook on the bulletin board listing recent repairs. One entry, dated a month ago, mentions duct cleaning between 6A and 6B, signed by Carstairs. Curious, Poirot says, noting the date matches the Robinsons' move-in. The landlord, he knows more than he claims. Hastings, shivering in the drafty lobby, sighs. You're seeing conspiracies everywhere, Poirot. Maybe Carstairs just likes clean ducts. But Poirot's smile is unshaken. Clean ducts do not hide receipts, mon ami, nor do they whisper at night. This chapter is about chasing connections between past crimes, present clues, and hidden spaces. Poirot's peeling back layers, linking the robbery, the great, and Barker's secrecy to a bigger scheme. For us, it's a reminder to dig deeper when something feels off, to follow the trail of small details. Ever found an old photo or document that revealed a hidden story? Share it in the comments. I'm dying to hear. In the next chapter, Poirot will try to access Flat 6A's secrets and confront Carstairs again. Will he uncover the source of the whispers, or is the danger closing in? Don't miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay in the loop. The fog over London begins to lift, but a chill lingers in the air as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings return to Montagu Mansions. The old building's red brick exterior standing like a sentinel guarding its secrets. The morning sun struggles through the clouds, casting pale light on the cracked marble lobby, where the faint hum of the city, trams rattling, voices calling feels distant, as if the building exists in its own world. Poirot, his overcoat pristine and his hat tilted at a perfect angle, moves with quiet determination, his mind a kaleidoscope of clues. The suspiciously cheap rent of Flat 6B, the hidden panel by the Robinsons' fireplace, the whispers in the walls, the cigarette burns linking the hall to Flat 6A, the 1929 robbery, and the elusive tenant John Barker's guarded demeanor. Captain Hastings, trailing behind, his scarf loose and his mood sour, lets out a long sigh. Poirot, this is getting out of hand, he grumbles, sidestepping a cobweb in the stairwell. A few noises, a dusty grate, and an old robbery. You're building a castle in the air. Can't we just tell the Robinsons it's a creaky building and head back to civilization? Poirot's mustache twitches, his green eyes glinting with resolve. Mon ami, he says, his Belgian accent sharp. Castles in the air are built on dreams, but my castle is built on facts. The truth, it hides in the shadows, and I, Hercule Poirot, will bring it to light. Today, Poirot's mission is to gain access to Flat 6A, where John Barker's secrecy and the cigarette smoke suggest a connection to the Robinsons' troubles. He also wants to investigate the ventilation grate further, suspecting it's more than a conduit for whispers. Might be a passage linking 6A and 6B tied to the 1929 robbery. But Barker's not making it easy, and Poirot knows a direct approach might spook him. Instead, he decides to try a subtler tactic, enlisting the Robinsons' help. Back in flat 6B, Stella and James are waiting, their faces etched with worry. Stella's hands twist nervously as she offers tea, her voice low. "The whispers were back last night, Monsieur Poirot," she says, glancing at the bedroom wall. "It was two voices, arguing about getting it out before they find it. I'm scared to sleep here." James, pacing, adds, "I saw that Barker fellow in the hall again, smoking, watching our door. He bolted when he saw me." Poirot nods, his grey cells buzzing. "Madame, Monsieur, your observations are most valuable. I must see inside flat 6A. Perhaps you could invite Monsieur Barker for tea to distract him." Stella hesitates, but agrees, and James heads to 6A to extend the invitation. Barker, surprisingly, accepts, though his eyes are wary when he arrives, clutching a chipped mug like a shield. He's lean, with a nervous energy, his fingers stained with nicotine. Poirot, sipping his tisane, keeps the conversation light, asking about London life, the weather, anything to put Barker at ease. But his eyes are sharp, noting Barker's glances toward the bedroom wall and the faint tremor in his hand when Stella mentions the noises. "Old buildings," Barker mutters, echoing Carstairs, always creaking. Poirot smiles, but his mind is elsewhere. Hastings, under the guise of fetching more tea, has slipped out to try 6A's door. Hastings returns, shaking his head slightly, signaling the door was locked. Poirot's plan shifts. He'll need another way in. With Barker distracted, Poirot excuses himself to stretch his legs and heads to the hallway, kneeling by the ventilation grate again. The rusted metal is loose, and he removes it quietly, peering into the narrow duct. The metallic glint he saw before is clearer, now a small key caught on a jagged edge. Using a handkerchief, he retrieves it, noting its intricate design, unlike any standard lock. "Most curious," he murmurs, pocketing it. The duct is tight, but he can see it curves towards 6A, confirming his suspicion of a passage. Back in 6B, he examines the bedroom wall's seam again, testing the key against a hidden panel. It doesn't fit, but the lock's shape suggests it's for something nearby, perhaps in 6A. Hastings, back from his failed mission, sighs. A key, Poirot, probably for a broom closet. "You're chasing fairy tales now." But Poirot's smile is serene. "Fairy tales, mon ami, often hide truths. Let's unpack this." Poirot's like a spider weaving a web, using charm and cunning to gather clues. The key in the grate is a breakthrough. It's no ordinary key, hinting at a hidden lock, maybe tied to the robbery's loot. Barker's nervousness, the duct's path to 6A, and the whispers about getting it out suggest a plot unfolding right under the Robinsons' noses. It's like when you find a random key in your house and wonder what it opens. Poirot's determined to find out. For us, it's a lesson in persistence. Even a locked door doesn't stop a detective who thinks outside the box. Ever found something odd that led to a bigger discovery? That's Poirot's world right now. Poirot decides to revisit the newspaper office for more on the 1929 robbery. The same reporter pulls additional clippings, revealing the stolen jewels belonged to a wealthy widow, Mrs. Langley, who lived in 6B. The thief, Grayson, was her tenant, suspected of hiding the loot before vanishing. Carstairs, the landlord, then and now, claimed ignorance, but the police suspected he knew more. The jewels, Poirot muses, perhaps they are still here, hidden in 6A or 6B. He also learns Grayson had a partner, never caught, described as a smoker with a scar on his hand. Barker's nicotine-stained fingers flash in Poirot's mind. Could he be the partner, or a relative? Returning to Montagu Mansions, Poirot notices a new detail in the lobby. A maintenance worker, lingering near the bulletin board, drops a cigarette butt matching the burns. When Poirot approaches, the man hurries away, his hand scarred. Most interesting, Poirot says, pocketing the butt. Back in 6B, Poirot shares his findings with the Robinsons, keeping the key a secret for now. Your flat, he says, may hold remnants of a crime long past. The whispers, the watchers, they are connected. Stella's eyes widen, and James clenches his fists. We're moving out, he says, but Poirot raises a hand. Not yet, monsieur. The truth will protect you. He plans to confront Carstairs again, suspecting the landlord's role in the robbery, and to find a way into 6A, perhaps with a key. As they leave, the worker's scarred hand lingers in his mind, another piece of the puzzle. This chapter is about closing in on the truth, one clue at a time. Poirot's weaving the robbery, the key, and Barker's secrecy into a theory. And the maintenance worker's appearance adds a new twist. For us, it's a reminder to keep digging when things don't add up. Small finds, like a key or a burn, can unlock big secrets. Ever stumbled on something that made you rethink a situation? Share your stories in the comments. I'm curious. In the next chapter, Poirot will try to unlock the mystery of the key and confront Carstairs with new evidence. Will he find the jewels, or is the danger closer than he thinks? Don't miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay in the loop. The London afternoon is grey and heavy, the fog thinning to a misty haze that clings to the cobblestones outside Montagu Mansions. Hercule Poirot stands in the lobby, his overcoat pristine, his hat tilted just so, his sharp eyes scanning the cracked marble floor and the flickering chandelier above. His mind is a whirlwind of clues, each one a thread in the tapestry of mystery surrounding flat 6B, the suspiciously low rent, the hidden panel by the fireplace, the whispers in the walls, the cigarette burns linking to flat 6A, the 1929 jewel, robbery, the evasive landlord Carstairs, the secretive tenant John Barker, and now the small, intricate key found in the ventilation grate. Captain Hastings, leaning against a pillar, his scarf loose and his mood as gloomy as the weather, lets out a frustrated sigh. Poirot, this is getting ridiculous, he grumbles, kicking at a loose tile. A key, some old robbery, a few cigarette butts. You're spinning a yarn out of nothing. Can't we just tell the Robinsons to pack up and call it a day? Poirot's moustache twitches, his green eyes glinting with quiet determination. Mon ami, he says, his Belgian accent thick with purpose, the smallest thread can unravel. The greatest secret. This key, it is no trifle. Opens something, and I, Hercule Poirot, will find what. In his pocket, the key feels heavy, a promise of answers. Poirot's plan today is to unlock the mystery of the key and confront Carstairs with new evidence about his role in the 1929 robbery. He suspects the key belongs to a lock in flat 6A, perhaps tied to the hidden passage or the stolen jewels. But first, he needs to test the key and gather more information about the maintenance worker with the scarred hand, whose cigarette butt matched the burns in the hall. Poirot heads back to flat 6B, where Stella and James Robinson are waiting, their faces pale with worry. Stella's hands tremble as she sets out a tray of biscuits, her voice barely above a whisper. The whispers were back last night, monsieur. Poirot, she says, glancing at the bedroom wall. It sounded like someone planning something, moving things, hiding them. I'm scared to stay here. James, pacing by the window, adds, I saw that maintenance fellow again, lurking in the stairwell. He had a scar on his hand, and he ran off when I looked at him. Poirot's grey cells sparked the scarred man could be the key to connecting Barker, Carstairs, and the robbery. Poirot examines the hidden panel by the fireplace again, testing the key against its lock. The key doesn't fit, but it's intricate. Design suggests it's for something specificer, safe perhaps, or another hidden compartment. He moves to the bedroom wall, where the faint seam hints at another panel. The key doesn't work there either, but Poirot notices a faint scratch near the baseboard, like something heavy was dragged across it. Most curious, he murmurs, kneeling to inspect it. He finds a tiny speck of gold paint, barely visible, caught in the wood. A safe, perhaps, or a box, he says, pocketing the speck. Hastings, hovering nearby, groans. Gold paint, Poirot. You're seeing treasure. Everywhere now. It's probably just chipped furniture. But Poirot's smile is serene. Furniture does not hide in walls, mon ami. But treasure does. Poirot decides to confront Carstairs, hoping to catch him off guard. They descend to the basement office. The air musty and the corridors dim, lit by flickering bulbs. Carstairs is there, hunched over a ledger, his face tightening when he sees Poirot. Back again, Monsieur Poirot, he says, his voice oily but strained. I told you, it's just an old building. Poirot leans forward, his charm masking his intensity. Monsieur Carstairs, let us speak of 1929. A robbery in flat 6B, jewels stolen, never recovered. You were landlord then, were you not? And now, a cheap rent, whispers, a hidden panel. What are you hiding? Carstairs' hands tremble, and he laughs, too loudly. That's ancient history. I don't know anything about jewels. The rent's low to fill the flat, that's all. But his eyes dart to a locked drawer in his desk, and Poirot notes it. And the maintenance worker, with the scarred hand, he is your employee, yes. Carstairs flushes, stammering. Just a temp, comes and goes. I don't keep track. Poirot thanks him, his politeness a veneer over suspicion, and leaves. Certain Carstairs is lying. Let's break this down. Poirot's like a master painter, adding strokes to a canvas of clues. The key, the gold paint, the scarred worker, they're all linked to the robbery, and Carstairs' nervousness confirms. He's involved. The whispers about moving things suggest someone's still after the jewels, possibly hidden in 6A or 6B. Barker's secrecy and the cigarette burns tie him to the plot. But the scarred worker is a new piece. Perhaps the robbery's missing. Partner, it's like finding a hidden drawer in an old desk. You know it holds something important, but you need the right key. Ever stumbled on a detail that made you rethink everything? That's Poirot's game right now. Poirot returns to the newspaper office, seeking more on the scarred worker. The reporter, now intrigued by Poirot's persistence, digs deeper, finding a police report from 29 mentioning a suspect with a scarred hand, never caught. They called him Scar Malone, she says, handing over a faded photo of a lean man with a cigarette. He was Grayson's partner, vanished after the heist. The photo's blurry, but the build matches Barker or, perhaps, the maintenance worker. Poirot's mind Receives could Barker be Malone, or is the worker the key? He decides to check the maintenance log again, finding an entry for duct repairs signed by J. Malone. Voila, Poirot says, his eyes gleaming. The past. It lives in the present. Back at Montagu Mansions, Poirot examines the ventilation grate again, noticing a faint scratch on the metal, like the key was used to pry something loose. He suspects the duct leads to a hidden space in 6A, possibly where the jewels are stashed. He plans to get into Barker's flat, perhaps by asking Stella to distract him again, and to track down the scarred worker. As he and Hastings leave 6B, they spot the worker in the lobby, sweeping the floor. Poirot approaches, but the man bolts, dropping a cigarette butt. Poirot picks it up, noting it matches the others. He runs, mon ami. Poirot says, because he is guilty. Hastings sighs, or he's late for lunch, Poirot, you're obsessed. But Poirot's smile is unshaken. Obsession, Hastings, is the path to truth. This chapter is about chasing the past to catch the present. Poirot's connecting the robbery, the key, and the scarred worker, building a case brick by brick. For us, it's a reminder to follow the trail, even when it leads to dusty corners. Ever found an old clue that unlocked a mystery in your life? Share it in the comments. I'm curious. In the next chapter, Poirot will try to enter flat 6A and hunt for the scarred worker. Will he find the jewels, or is the danger closer than he thinks? Don't miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay in the loop. The late afternoon light filters weakly through the fog, casting Montagu Mansions in a ghostly glow as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings stand in the building's drafty lobby. The air carries a chill, mixed with the faint scent of cigarette, smoke and old polish, and the distant rumble of London's streets feels like a heartbeat pulsing through the walls. Poirot, his overcoat pristine and his hat perfectly angled, grips the small, intricate key from the ventilation grate, his mind racing with the clues that have piled up: the impossibly cheap rent for flat 6B, the hidden panel by the Robinson fireplace, the whispers of arguments in the walls, the cigarette burns linking to flat 6A, the 1929 jewel robbery, the evasive landlord Carstairs, the secretive tenant John Barker, and the mysterious maintenance worker with the scarred hand. Possibly the elusive scar, Malone. Captain Hastings, his scarf dangling and his patience wearing thin, kicks at a loose tile on the marble floor. Poirot, this is getting out of hand, he grumbles, his breath visible in the cold. A key, some whispers, an old robbery, you're chasing a ghost story. Can't we just warn the Robinsons and head back to a warm fire? Poirot's mustache twitches, his green eyes sharp with resolve. Mon ami, he says, his Belgian accent thick. Ghosts do not leave cigarette butts, nor do they hide keys in ducts. The truth is near, and I, Hercule Poirot, will seize it. His little grey cells are buzzing, and he's ready to push deeper into the mystery. Poirot's plan is to get inside flat 6A, where he suspects the key unlocks a hidden compartment tied to the robbery, and to track down the scarred maintenance worker, who may be the key to unraveling the plot. He starts with the Robinsons, hoping to use their flat as a base to monitor 6A. Back in 6B, Stella and James are on edge, the strain of sleepless nights etched into their faces. Stella's hands shake as she pours tea, her voice trembling. The whispers were worse last night, Monsieur Poirot, she says, glancing at the bedroom wall. It was like they were right behind us, talking about moving the goods, and before the detective finds out, I'm terrified. James, his jaw tight, adds, "I saw that scarred fellow again, sweeping the lobby. He stared at our door, then vanished when I stepped out." Poirot's eyes narrowed. The mention of detective in the whispers means someone knows he's closing in. "Madame, monsieur," he says, "your courage is admirable. I must enter flat 6A. Can you invite Monsieur Barker again to keep him occupied?" Stella nods, though her eyes are wide with fear, and James heads to 6A to extend the invitation. Barker arrives, his lean frame tense, his fingers stained with nicotine as he clutches a cigarette. Poirot keeps the conversation light, asking about his work vaguely described as imports, while watching his every move. Barker's eyes dart to the bedroom wall, and when Stella mentions the noises, he stubs out his cigarette too quickly, leaving a fresh burn on the table. "Just the wind," he mutters, but his voice is strained. Poirot signals Hastings, who slips out under the pretense of fetching sugar, heading to 6A with a lockpick borrowed from Poirot's discreet toolkit. Hastings, nervous but game, jimmies the lock and slips inside. The flat is cluttered papers, empty bottles, and an ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts, matching the burns in the hall. He finds a locked cabinet in the bedroom, its keyhole matching Poirot's key. But before he can try it, he hears footsteps and ducks behind a curtain. Barker, suspicious, has left 6B early, and Hastings barely escapes, locking the door behind him. Poirot, back in 6B, listens to Hastings's whispered report. "A cabinet, you say? With a lock like this?" He holds up the key, his grey cells sparking. "Most interesting. We must return to 6A, but with care." He decides to investigate the ventilation duct further, suspecting it's the path for the whispers, kneeling in the hall. He removes the grate again, using a pocket torch to peer inside. The duct curves sharply toward 6A, and he spots another clue, a tiny velvet pouch, caught on a nail, its edge glinting with something shiny. With a handkerchief, he retrieves it, finding a single pearl inside, small but flawless. "Voila," he says, his voice low, "the jewels, they are here." Hastings, peering over his shoulder, gasps, "A pearl, Poirot, you've found the loot." But Poirot shakes his head. "One pearl, mon ami, is a clue, not the treasure, but it tells us where to look. Let's unpack this." Poirot's like a conductor, orchestrating every move to tighten the net. The pearl, the locked cabinet, the whispers about a detective, they confirm the robbery's loot is still in play, likely hidden in 6A. Barker's nervousness and the scarred worker's presence suggest a conspiracy, with Carstairs pulling strings. It's like finding a piece of jewelry in an unexpected place. You know there's more to the story. For us, it's a lesson in persistence. Even when doors are locked, there's always another way in. Ever found a small item that hinted at a bigger secret? That's Poirot's world right now. Poirot decides to dig deeper into Scar Malone's identity. He visits the local police station, where a gruff sergeant pulls the 1929 robbery file. Malone was a slippery one, the sergeant says. Scar on his left hand, smoked like a chimney. He and Grayson pulled the heist, but Malone vanished. Rumor was he hid the jewels in the building. Poirot shows the pearl, and the sergeant's eyes widen. Looks like Mrs. Langley's part of her stolen necklace. Poirot's mind races. Barker or the maintenance worker could be Malone or his accomplice, and Carstairs' role is clearer. He returns to Montagu Mansions, spotting the scarred worker in the basement, fixing a pipe. Poirot approaches, but the man drops his tools and flees, leaving behind a cigarette pack with a jeweler's address scrawled on it. He runs, Poirot says, pocketing the pack because he fears the truth. Back in 6B, Poirot shares his findings with the Robinsons, urging them to stay vigilant. The jewels are here, hidden in 6A or the passage. The whispers, they are plans to retrieve them. Stella's face pales, and James clenches his fists. "We're leaving," he says, but Poirot shakes his head. "Stay, monsieur, and trust Poirot. The truth will free you." He plans to use the key in 6A's cabinet and confront the scarred worker at the jeweler's address. As they leave, the worker's cigarette pack burns in his paquita, clue to the final piece. This chapter is about closing in, pushing past locked doors and fleeting shadows. Poirot's weaving the pearl, the key, and the whispers into a case, and the scarred worker's flight confirms he's on the right track. For us, it's a reminder to chase the truth, even when it runs. Ever had a hunch that led you to a breakthrough? Share it in the comments sign dying to hear. In the next chapter, Poirot will infiltrate flat 6A and track the scarred worker. Will he find the jewels, or is the danger closer than he thinks? Don't miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay in the loop. The evening settles over London like a heavy curtain, the fog thinning to reveal a city bathed in the soft glow of street lamps. Montagu Mansions stands silent, its red brick facade hiding secrets as old as its cracked marble lobby. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat immaculate and his hat tilted with precision, stands in the dim hallway outside flat 6A, the small, intricate key from the ventilation grate clutched in his gloved hand. His mind is a storm of clues, each one a piece of the puzzle. The suspiciously cheap rent for flat 6B, the hidden panel by the Robinsons' fireplace, the whispers of plans to move the goods, the cigarette burns linking 6A and 6B, the 1929 jewel robbery, the evasive landlord Carstairs, the secretive tenant John Barker, the scarred maintenance worker who might be Scar Malone, and the single pearl found in the duct. Captain Hastings, leaning against the wall, his scarf loose and his patience frayed, lets out a groan. "Poirot, this is madness," he says, his voice echoing in the quiet hall. "A pearl, a key, some whispers. You're chasing a fairy tale. Can't we just tell the Robinsons to move and find a decent pub?" Poirot's mustache twitches, his green eyes gleaming with determination. "Mon ami," he replies, his Belgian accent sharp. "Fairy tales end happily, but this tale ends with truth. This key, it unlocks more than a locket unlocks a crime, and I, Hercule Poirot, will open it." Poirot's plan is twofold. Use the key to access the locked cabinet in flat 6A, where Hastings glimpsed it during his brief intrusion, and track down the scarred maintenance worker at the jeweler's address, scrawled on the cigarette pack. But 6A's door remains a barrier, and Barker's not likely to invite them in for tea again. Poirot decides to enlist Stella Robinson's help once more, asking her to distract Barker with a neighborly complaint about the noises. "Madame," he says, back in 6B, where Stella's hands tremble as she pours tea, "your courage is essential. Invite Monsieur Barker here. Keep him talking. I must enter his flat." Stella's eyes widen, but she nods, her voice shaky. "I'll try, Monsieur Poirot. But those whispers last night, they mentioned your name. They know you're here." James, pacing by the window, clenches his fists. "This is dangerous, Poirot. That scarred fellow was in the lobby again, watching us. I don't trust him. Or Barker." Poirot's grey cells spark. The mention of his name in the whispers means the culprits are nervous. and nervous people make mistakes. Stella knocks on 6A's door, her voice steady despite her fear, inviting Barker to discuss building issues. Barker, wary but unable to refuse without arousing suspicion, follows her back to 6B, muttering about old pipes. Poirot and Hastings seize the moment, slipping into 6A with the lockpick. The flat is dim, cluttered with papers, empty bottles, and an ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts, their brand matching the burns in the hall. Poirot heads straight for the bedroom, where the locked cabinet stands against the wall shared with 6B. The key fits perfectly, turning with a soft click. Inside, he finds a small velvet bag, heavy with weight. Opening it, he reveals a handful of glittering jewels, sapphires, and more pearls, unmistakably part of Mrs. Langley's stolen 1929 collection. Voila, Poirot whispers, his eyes alight. The treasure, it is here. Hastings, peering over his shoulder, gasps. Blimey, Poirot, you found it. The robbery loot. But Poirot's expression is grim. Yes, mon ami, but why here, and why now? Before they can investigate further, footsteps echo in the hall. Barker's returning early. Poirot quickly pockets a single emerald, locks the cabinet, and they slip out, barely avoiding detection. Back in 6B, Barker's still talking with Stella, his voice tense, his eyes darting to the bedroom wall as if he senses something's amiss. Poirot rejoins them, his charm masking his discovery, and excuses himself, claiming a sudden errand. He's now certain 6A is the heart of the plot, but the scarred worker's role remains unclear. He decides to follow the jeweller's address from the cigarette pack, hoping it leads to Scar Malone. The address points to a small shop in Soho, a dingy place with a flickering sign, Goldman's Fine Jewels. The shop is cramped, its windows dusty, and the owner, a nervous man with thick glasses, greets Poirot warily. Monsieur Goldman, Poirot says, producing the cigarette pack. This address was found with a pearl, perhaps from a robbery long ago. Have you seen a man with a scarred hand offering jewels? Goldman's face pales, and he stammers, I, by from many people. Don't know about scars. But his eyes flick to a back room, and Poirot notes it. Let's unpack this. Poirot's like a hunter closing in on his prey, each clue tightening the net. The jewels in 6A confirm the robbery's loot is still in play, and Barker's involvement is almost certain. The scarred worker, likely Malone, connects to the jeweler, suggesting a plan to sell the stolen goods. The whispers mentioning Poirot mean the culprits are scared, and scared people slip up. It's like finding a secret stash in your house. You know someone's hiding something big. For us, it's a lesson in following the trail, no matter how small the clues. Ever found a hidden item that changed your view of someone? That's Poirot's game right now. Poirot presses Goldman, his voice gentle but firm. A man with a scarred hand, monsieur. He is known to you, yes. Goldman hesitates, then admits, a fellow came in last week, wanted to appraise some pearls. Had a scar on his left hand. Didn't give a name, paid cash. Poirot shows the pearl from the duct, and Goldman nods, looks like his. Poirot thanks him, his mind racing. Malone is moving the jewels, and Barker's flat is the hiding place. But why the cheap rent for 6B? Is Carstairs using the Robinsons as a cover, or is there more? Back at Montagu Mansions, Poirot notices the maintenance worker in the basement, fixing a light. He approaches, but the man bolts again, dropping a screwdriver with a scratched handle. Poirot picks it up, noting its similarity to one used to pry open the duct. He flees, Poirot says, because he is guilty. Returning to 6B, Poirot shares just enough with the Robinsons to keep them calm. The jewels are near, hidden. In this building, the whispers, they are plans to retrieve them. Stay vigilant, but trust Poirot. Stella's eyes are wide, and James grips her hand. We're done here, he says, but Poirot shakes his head. Not yet, monsieur. The truth will protect you. He plans to confront Barker with the emerald and track Malone to the jeweler's shop. As they leave, the screwdriver in his pocket feels like a warning. The danger is close, and the final clue is near. This chapter is about tightening the screws, using clues to corner the guilty. Poirot's found the jewels, but the why and who are still murky for us. It's a reminder to keep pushing when the truth is close, even when it's dangerous. Ever had a moment where one find changed everything? Share it in the comments. Share it in the comments. I'm curious. In the next chapter, Poirot will confront Barker and hunt for Malone. Will he unlock the final clue, or is the danger too close? Don't miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay in the loop. The night wraps London in a chilly embrace. The fog now a thin veil that softens the glow of street lamps outside Montagu Mansions. Inside, the grand but faded building feels like a maze of secrets, its cracked marble lobby echoing with the faint creaks of old wood and the distant hum of the city. Hercule Poirot stands in the dimly lit hallway outside flat 6A, his overcoat pristine, his hat perfectly angled, the small emerald from the hidden cabinet in his pocket and the scratched screwdriver from the scarred maintenance worker weighing heavily in his hand. His mind is a whirlwind of clues, each one a step closer to the truth. The suspiciously cheap rent for flat 6B, the hidden panel by the Robinsons' fireplace, the whispers plotting to move the goods, the cigarette burns tying 6A to 6B, the 1929 jewel robbery, the evasive landlord Carstairs, the secretive tenant John Barker, the scarred worker who might be Scar Malone, and the handful of jewels found in 6A's locked cabinet. Captain Hastings, slouching against the wall, his scarf dangling and his patience long gone, lets out a frustrated huff. Poirot, this is getting absurd, he says, his voice low to avoid echoing. You've got jewels, a key, a screwdriver, why not call the police and be done with it? This place gives me the creeps. Poirot's moustache twitches, his green eyes sharp with focus. Mon ami, he replies, his Belgian accent thick with purpose. The police need proof, and proof needs a confession. The truth, it is a trap, and I, Hercule Poirot, will spring it tonight. Poirot's plan is to confront John Barker with the emerald, hoping to provoke a reaction that reveals his role, and to track down the scarred worker, likely Malone, at the jeweler's shop. But first, he needs to get back into 6A to confirm the jewel's hiding place and check for more evidence. He knows Barker's suspicious, so he enlists Stella and James Robinson again, asking them to create a distraction. Back in 6B, the Robinsons are a bundle of nerves, the strain of sleepless nights etched into their faces. Stella's hands shake. As she sets out a tray of tea, her voice barely above a whisper. The whispers were louder last night. Monsieur Poirot, she says, glancing at the bedroom wall. They mentioned you again, saying the detective's too close. I'm scared they'll do something drastic. James, pacing by the window, clenches his fists. I saw that scarred man in the basement, carrying a bag. He looked nervous, like he was planning to run. Poirot's grey cells buzz. The culprits know he's closing in, and time is running out. Madame, monsieur, he says, his tone calm but firm. I need you to invite Monsieur Barker here, under the guise of discussing the noises. Keep him talking. I must search his flat. Stella nods, her eyes wide with fear, and James heads to 6A, returning with Barker, who's more guarded than ever. His lean frame is tense, his nicotine-stained fingers twitching as he lights another cigarette. Poirot keeps the conversation light, asking about Barker's import business, but his eyes are locked on Barker's reactions. When Stella mentions the whispers, Barker's cigarette trembles, and he stubs it out on the table, leaving another burn mark. Old buildings, he mutters, his voice tight. Nothing to fuss about. Poirot smiles, but his mind is elsewhere. Hastings, under the pretense of fetching biscuits, slips out to 6A with the lockpick. Inside, Hastings finds the cabinet again, but it's empty now, the jewels gone. He spots a loose floorboard under the bed, prying it up to reveal a small tin box, locked with a keyhole matching Poirot's key. Before he can open it, he hears footsteps and hides, barely escaping as Barker returns, his face pale with suspicion. Poirot, back in 6B, listens to Hastings's whispered report. The jewels are moved, mon ami, he says, his voice low. But the tin box, it is the next clue. He decides to confront Barker directly, knowing the emerald in his pocket is his ace. He returns to the group, his charm masking his intent. Monsieur Barker, he says, producing the emerald, this was found in your flat, in a cabinet. It is from the 1929 robbery, Nan. You know of the jewels hidden here. Barker's face drains of color, his cigarette falling to the floor. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammers, but his eyes dart to the bedroom. Wall betraying him. Poirot presses further. The whispers, Monsieur, they speak of moving goods, of a detective too close. You are involved with the scarred man, yes. Barker bolts for the door, but Hastings, quick for once, blocks him. Not so fast, old chap, he says, grinning. Let's unpack this. Poirot's like a chess master, moving pieces to checkmate. The empty cabinet and the tin box suggest the jewels are being moved, likely by Barker and Malone, with Carstairs pulling strings. The emerald forces Barker's hand, his panic a confession of sorts. The whispers mentioning Poirot show the culprits are desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. It's like catching someone in a lie. They squirm when you show proof. For us, it's a lesson in timing, knowing when to reveal your cards. Ever confronted someone with evidence and watched them crack? That's Poirot's game right now. Poirot shifts focus to the scarred worker, heading to Goldman's fine jewels in Soho. The shop is dim, its shelves lined with dusty trinkets. Goldman, the nervous owner, is sweeping when Poirot enters, the emerald in hand. Monsieur Goldman, Poirot says, this pearl, this emerald, they were brought to you by a man with a scarred hand. Yes. Tell me about him. Goldman's hands shake, and he glances at the back room. He came in yesterday, wanted to sell some jewels, said his name was Malone. Didn't like questions. Poirot's eyes gleam. Malone is real and active. He notices a ledger on the counter, open. To a page listing pearls. Appraised, no sale. Goldman admits Malone left in a hurry, promising to return tonight. Poirot thanks him, planning to stake out the shop. Back at Montagu Mansions, Poirot finds the scarred worker in the basement, fixing a pipe. He approaches, holding the screwdriver. Monsieur Malone, he says, his voice steady. This tool, it was used to open the duct where jewels were hidden. You are the partner of Grayson, Nan. The worker's eyes widen, and he drops his wrench, sprinting for the exit. Poirot, too slow to chase, picks up the wrench, noting its worn handle matches the screwdriver. He runs, he says to Hastings, because he is cornered. Returning to 6B, Poirot warns the Robinsons to lock their doors. The jewels are moving, and the culprits are desperate. Stay safe. Stella's face is pale, and James grips her hand. We trust you, Poirot, he says, but his voice shakes. This chapter is about turning up the heat, forcing the guilty to act. Poirot's using the emerald and the screwdriver to push Barker and Malone into mistakes. And the stakeout at the jeweler's is his next move. For us, it's a reminder that truth comes when you apply pressure at the right moment. Ever pushed someone to reveal a secret? Share it in the comments. I'm curious. In the next chapter, Poirot will stake out the jeweler's shop and confront Carstairs with the full truth. Will he find the jewels, or is the danger too close? Don't miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay in the loop. The night is thick with tension as London's fog swirls outside Montagu Mansions. The old building's red brick facade glowing faintly under the dim street lamps. Hercule Poirot stands in the shadows of a Soho alley, his overcoat wrapped tightly. Against the chill, his hat low to conceal his sharp features. In his pocket, he carries the emerald from flat 6A's cabinet, the scratched screwdriver, and the wrench dropped by the scarred maintenance worker. Each a piece of the puzzle that has consumed him. The impossibly cheap rent for flat 6B. The hidden panel by the Robinsons' fireplace, the whispers plotting to move the goods, the cigarette burns linking 6A and 6B, the 1929 jewel robbery, the evasive landlord Carstairs, the secretive tenant John Barker, the scarred worker Scar Malone, and the handful of jewels found and then vanished from 6A, Captain Hastings shivering beside him. His scarf loose and his mood sour, mutters under his breath, Poirot, this is lunacy, he says, his voice barely audible over the distant hum of the city. Standing in a freezing alley, waiting for some crook. We should be calling the police, not playing spies. Poirot's mustache twitches, his green eyes glinting with steely resolve. Mon ami, he replies, his Belgian accent sharp. The police need evidence, and evidence needs a trap. Tonight, I, Hercule Poirot, will spring it, and the truth will be ours. His little grey cells are alight, ready to close the case. Poirot's plan is a high-stakes gamble. Stake out Goldman's fine jewels, where Malone promised to return, and confront Carstairs with the mounting evidence to force a confession. He's certain Barker and Malone are moving the stolen jewels, with Carstairs orchestrating the scheme, using 6B's low rent as a cover. First, he returns to Montagu Mansions to check on the Robinsons and set the stage. In flat 6B, Stella and James are a bundle of nerves, the constant whispers eroding their courage. Stella's hands tremble as she offers tea, her voice a whisper. They were arguing again last night, Monsieur Poirot, she says, glancing at the bedroom wall. They said, the detective's too close. We move tonight. I'm terrified. They'll come for us. James, pacing, his face tight with anger, adds, I saw Barker and that scarred man in the lobby, whispering. They split when they saw me. Poirot nods, his grey cells buzzing. The culprits are desperate, and desperation breeds mistakes. Madame, monsieur, he says, lock your doors and stay inside. I will end this tonight. Poirot heads to 6A, hoping to find the tin box Hastings saw under the floorboard. Using the lockpick, he slips inside, the flat dark and cluttered, reeking of cigarette smoke. The floorboard is still loose, and the key from the duct fits the tin box perfectly. Inside, he finds more jewel sprills, emeralds, a sapphire ring all, matching the 1929 robbery's description. Voila, he murmurs, pocketing a pearl to use as bait. But as he closes the box, he hears footsteps Barker, returning unexpectedly. Poirot hides behind a curtain, his heart steady despite the danger. Barker, muttering to himself, grabs a bag from the cabinet and leaves, unaware of Poirot's presence. He moves the jewels. Poirot whispers, slipping out. Hastings, waiting. In the hall, hisses, "That was too close, Poirot. You're going to get us killed." But Poirot's smile is serene. Danger, mon ami, is the price of truth. They hurry to Goldman's fine jewels, hiding in the alley across the street. The shop's sign flickers, its windows dark except for a faint glow in the back. Poirot's eyes are locked on the door, the emerald and pearl in his pocket ready to force a confession. At midnight, a figure approaches lean, scarred hand visible, cigarette glowing. It's Malone. He enters the shop, and Poirot follows, signaling Hastings to stay back. Inside, Goldman is waiting, his face pale as Malone dumps a bag of jewels on the counter. "These are the last," Malone growls. "Carstairs wants them sold tonight." Poirot steps forward, his voice calm but commanding. "Monsieur Malone, Monsieur Goldman, the game is over. These jewels, they are from the 1929 robbery, hidden in flat 6A. I have this." He holds up the pearl, and this, showing the emerald. Malone's eyes widen, and he lunges, but Poirot sidesteps, his agility surprising. Goldman shrieks, "I didn't know they were stolen." But Poirot's gaze is unrelenting. "You knew, monsieur." And Carstairs, he planned it all. Malone bolts, but Hastings, stationed outside, trips him, sending him sprawling. Poirot calls the police, who arrive swiftly, cuffing Malone and Goldman. Back at Montagu Mansions, Poirot confronts Carstairs in his basement office. "Monsieur Carstairs," he says, producing the jewels, "you kept 6B's rent low to hide the robbery's loot, using Barker and Malone to move it. The whispers, the panels, they were your scheme." Carstairs collapses, confessing, "I needed the money," he sobs. "Grayson hid the jewels. I kept 6B empty or cheap to protect them. Barker's his nephew, Malone his old partner." The police take Carstairs, and the Robinsons, relieved, thank Poirot. "You saved us," Stella says, tears in her eyes. Poirot bows. "The little grey cells, madame, and a single Clutha key. Let's unpack this." Poirot's triumph is a masterclass in strategy, using the jewels to trap the guilty. The key unlocked the box, but his timing confronting at the right moment sealed the case. For us, it's a lesson in persistence and timing, knowing when to strike. Ever solved a mystery with one final clue? Share it in the comments. I'm curious. This case is closed, but Poirot's brilliance shines on. If you loved this, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more mysteries. Thanks for joining us. Keep your eyes open for the truth.